All right, looking at our attendee list, I think this is pretty good, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Tom Levine. I'm the head of Tech Tuesday here at Cornerstone. Uh, I also work in our commissions department, so feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about that. Today we'll be going over some Microsoft Word basics, and this is also the last Tech Tuesday of the year. Going into the busier season, we're going to kind of ramp it down and suspend the program for a little while. But we're looking to return hopefully in 2019. So keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions while I'm going over anything, feel free to type it out and list your question in the questions section down here or in the chat section of your menu. Or you could send me an email at tlevine@crnstone.com and I'll just respond to you when I can. If there's anything else, no more questions. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I find that the best thing that you can do when using Microsoft Word is to know all of your menu options. So what we're going to go over today is all of the menus. We're going to go over how to insert headers and footers and what those are capable of, as well as sizing and indents of text. We'll also cover hyperlinks and inserting pictures and images, as well as some Adobe conversion, not much, just a little bit. And then we'll also go over how to lock down your file so no other people can edit it. Starting off, we're going to be in this Home tab here. Home is really what you'll use most in Microsoft Word, just because it's easy. It has most of the options you'll need to access, and it really just allows you to edit and fully control your documents. I've already typed out a little section here, but you can click and highlight text, just as I'm doing, with a left click, and that will select any changes you're going to make in either the font or the paragraph heading. You could also, as far as the paragraph heading is concerned, move your cursor to the end here, and then just scroll along these buttons to change that. But either way, starting off, we're going to go into the font and text options. First thing here is this drop down. That is your font. Outside of the theme fonts, which I'll get to in a minute, and the recently used fonts, you just have a full list of all of the different fonts that Microsoft Word has right over here. It can be anything from a script to a Calibri or the Californian more rounded letters. Anything you would like, it normally has. Microsoft actually has a very expansive collection of fonts, and if it doesn't have the one you want preloaded, you can go online and actually download them. One of my favorites is just Braillehand ITC because it looks kind of fun, but in a more business standpoint, you could use Arial, or normally it starts off in Calibri. You can also change the font size in the drop-down right next to that. Scrolling through here, it only has up to 72 really selectable, but you can type it like 105, and it'll change it to 105. Personally, I prefer Calibri in size 11. You could also quick change fonts using these buttons here. Allows you to size up and size down. And you can actually also quick change case. You have sentence case, which it's already in. You could lowercase everything. You could move it all to upper. You could capitalize every word, or you can do the toggle case, which is beginning lowercase and then everything else is upper. You can also actually clear any changes in formatting you have by clicking the Clear Formatting button. It doesn't work with cases, though. Then you can bold, italicize, and underline your fonts with these quick items here. And I know I'm going through this a little fast, but in the PowerPoint I'm going to post on Friday, I will have a label for all of these menus typed out so that you know exactly what everything does. You can also actually apply multiples at once if you didn't know. You can strike through your text, and you can also add it as a subscript or a superscript if you'd like. To undo all of these, just re-click on the button as well while highlighted. You can also mess with the way the font looks with fills and backgrounds, outlines, shadows, reflections, and glows on your fonts. This is really something I would only do if you want to make something pop in your document. I typically don't recommend it for a professional setting, but if you're trying to design a flyer or something, you might need access to those options, such as this font right here. This is actually a variant of something that used to be called word art, which Microsoft Word still does have, but this option gave you more control, so they switched to it. To undo something like this, you could change it back to whatever case you want, just automatic everything, and it should go back to normal. More or less. Or you could just do what I do and Control Z out of it, which is the first of our shortcuts. Control Z means undo, and that's for most Word programs, well, Microsoft programs, really. Then, after that, you can get into your paragraph settings. I've already shown you how to do left, center, right, and justified paragraph settings. More often than not, I'd recommend using the left side because that's what most people align to. You can also actually make bulleted lists. And if I copy my text, I'm going to hit Control and the letter C. That is the shortcut for copy. And then I can hit Control V, and it'll actually paste the line down through without actually changing it or taking it away. You can do something similar, actually. I'm just going to add a dot here for reference. If I were to highlight this and do a right click and do cut, and then do paste, Control V, it'll copy what I had cut. And that's how I would move my sentences around quickly. You can also, once I'm going to highlight the full field, change the spacing using this drop down here under paragraph. And that just changes the spacing between each of the lines. Microsoft Word automatically, in 2010 at least, does a 1.15-inch type spacing. And I prefer that. You could also do a single or double, typically. You can also actually highlight the full background of the image using the fill option here. And you can show each of the line options here using this field here. It looks very similar and acts very similar to how Microsoft Excel does its type spacing. The one thing that I would recommend if you're going to use this to mark out your line spaces maybe is just use the bottom border there. As you can see though, if you have the full set highlighted, it will only highlight the bottom rung of it. It won't highlight each individual column or row. If I were to then just do one of them and hit bottom border, then it'll border the bottom just like that. However, in Microsoft Word, I typically do no borders. You can also insert the type symbols here. It shows paragraph marks and other hidden formatting symbols. And you can alphabetize automatically your lines and lists. The other thing you can do with lists in Microsoft Word is you can bullet them. You don't actually have to bullet the full set. I like to type out my list and then use the bulleting options here to format. Other people like to type it in the formatted bullet list. It's really your choice. But for formatting reasons, I would type everything out and then use the numbering or the bullets. And the reason for that is if I'm going to do a hierarchy bullet like this. If I hit enter here, it automatically makes the number 2. If I tab in, it's going to give me that sub-bullet. And if I start typing, then it will start continuing my sub-bullets. If I enter again, I can get to the 2. The mistake that most people tend to make is they hit enter and think, oh, I don't want the bulleted list to be just A, B. I want to go back and make a new full bullet. And then I hit backspace. and that will actually undo your formatting. So instead of hitting backspace on this, if you just hit enter, it'll go to the next spot in the bulleted list. Undoing the formatted lists really quickly. We can also get into the styles, which is what I was mentioning earlier. A style is just a full header and body type. There's several different styles that Microsoft Word has loaded, but personally, I don't use them. It's much easier to just create your own style than use one of the preloaded ones. You can also actually use this here, as you can see, to custom set your style, which you have full access to through the font and paragraph options anyway. You can also use this editing tab here to quick find and replace text. If I'm just going to find Cornerstone, it'll highlight all cases with Cornerstone and give me a list here. That's very useful if you have a very large document and you're looking for a specific section. The next tab we're going to cover through is the Insert tab, and that allows you to insert pictures, charts, shapes, PDFs, anything you really need to. It starts with pages, so you can add like a cover page to your document, a blank page just above where you are, or insert a page break to the next page. Personally, I would rather just space it out because I'm used to doing that in Word, but some people prefer the page option. You can also actually insert a table in Microsoft Word, similar to Excel. Although I will say, if you're going to insert a full Excel spreadsheet, just use that Insert Excel option here, and it'll insert a full version of Excel. If you don't do that, then it'll insert a table kind of like this, and you don't have access to all of the formulas that you would in Excel. If you're trying to delete one of these images, you can't simply Control-Z it. You've got to highlight it, and then hit delete, and you will fully delete that table. You can also insert a picture. I actually have a picture ready and loaded on my flash drive for this under Word, and it's the Cornerstone logo. Once you insert a picture, then it'll automatically open up this Picture Tools Format tab. And with this, you can format the picture a little differently. You can add a framing sort of thing for your picture. You can round the edges. You can actually just change the picture if you want to put a different one in there using this option. You can compress them down to a lower pixel size. You can also add different artistic effects to them as well, and even remove backgrounds, but that one's a little bit trickier, and I wouldn't recommend doing it here. You'd probably want to get your own picture editing software for that. Then you can also change the position of it using this option here. And you can wrap text around your images using the wrap text option. Personally, I like the through option because then your picture can be easily just typed over. Well, not through, I apologize. That was my fault, actually. But I'm going to put it in front of behind text. There we go. That does not actually move. So what happened there is at the end of my text options, I hit enter, and that actually does move the image. But because we have the type through option, I can type over the image. It's just considered the image as behind the rest of my document. If we wanted to undo this, we would just click on the image, go to Format, and change the wrap text. I prefer the top and bottom options. And if you wanted to get under it by not hitting enter, because if you hit enter, like I said, you will insert that line, just hit the down arrow on your arrow keys, and that should bring you to the end. The other option is to simply click where you want to put your cursor. That goes over most of the image options, but you can also insert things like clip art, which I wouldn't recommend in an ad, but it's just fun little images. You can also add shapes and flow charts, although that is rather complicated. I'd recommend if you're going to insert a chart, you make it yourself in a different setting, but you can add lines, rectangles, and all the different flowchart shapes you want from Microsoft Word. You can also add a smart art, which is kind of similar to that flowchart. It's just a little bit easier to insert it. You have several different options here that you can play around with, and I'd highly recommend it if you're going to try to do flowcharts and write up schedules. You can also actually insert charts similarly to the way you would insert charts in Microsoft Excel. You can do a surface chart or a column chart, which is what most people would use, or lines. And it'll actually tell you to type up that in Microsoft Excel. I'm going to go ahead and delete this from my page by double-clicking on it, then right-click, Format Chart Area. You can get all the formats, same as Excel. Just click on the chart and hit delete, and you can delete it. You can also insert hyperlinks as well. You can click on the hyperlink button and then type in the web address. Like this one for Cornerstone. And that was just badly typed. If I wanted to fully insert the link, what I'd recommend doing is opening up the page in a web browser, such as this one, which is Firefox, as I covered from our last Tech Tuesday, and going to the web page, then just copy and paste the link once it's fully up. Then you can go back to your hyperlink, type it in this box here, and hit OK. Yeah, I forgot the semicolon. If you then want to click on the link in Word, you can edit it by just clicking on it and moving your cursor. You can add to it, just say like typing in there. You can auto format. You can actually also, this is the most recognizable format for a link, but you can still go into the Home tab and change the options here. Like this way, it looks like normal text. If I just undo the underlining on it, then it looks like just a typed address, but I can still hit Control and then click on it. It will open up the link in my browser right here. You can also actually add a hyperlink to an image by right-clicking on it and then clicking Hyperlink, putting the address in, and hit OK. Then, as you can see, if I'm scrolled over it, it'll have the web link right up here in the corner. And to click on it, you would hit Control and then right-click, or left-click, I apologize, and it will open it back up. You can also use the Insert tab to get into your headers and footers. Headers and footers are very useful if you're trying to type up a professional report on something. Typically, I use blank headers and footers. You can type text in here, which I find very useful. But you can also, in headers and footers, do things like insert page numbers, like this one. You can also just quick jump between them using these navigation buttons here. You can change the spacing on these right up here and change the distance from the top quickly. And then these options allow you to change the numbering specifically as well. You can also insert the date and time on this so that people know when you are finished editing, or know what day it is when they're accessing the file. You could also quick insert pictures and clip art just like you could from the body. Headers and footers are extremely useful in my opinion, because they allow you to keep track of pages automatically. They allow you to insert those dates, and they're just overall a useful feature. As you can see here in our header footer that I inserted, the page number is there. And if I quick jump down to the second page, you can see it changed there. It's number 2, and it'll just keep going and going and going. In addition, you also have access to this page layout tab. And what that does is it actually changes the full layout of the page. From here, you can still change the theme, but you can also change margins, which is the space on the sides of the documents, the orientation of the document. You can change it to a landscape style. You can change the size of the paper you're using if you're trying to print this onto specialized paper. You can change the way the paragraphs are laid out in columns. This one means there are 2 columns. So once I get to the end of one, I can click over and type in the other. I can add line breaks, line numbers, and hyphenation here. And this is one of my favorite features of Microsoft Word. You can actually insert custom watermarks into your pages this way. Like if you wanted people to know it's a draft, you could add the draft watermark behind everything. But something else you can do is you can insert a custom watermark as a picture, such as the Cornerstone logo. And now, if I delete the image I had, as you can see, the background on this page is now our Cornerstone logo. Although it's a little hard to see, it's a watermark. You can also change the printed page color, although that would use a lot of ink. And you can change the way the borders on the page are presented, such as a box, so you can see where your margins are. I would recommend doing this only if you wanted to get accurate spacing. And then you can, of course, remove it by going to page borders and then changing it to none. You can also change indentation and line spacing from here as well by highlighting text and then increasing the indent, decreasing or changing that indent there. If you were right justified, you would see it. Changing the spacing before and after lines. And then you have this selection pane here. The selection pane helps you select objects and move them around a bit, but we have no objects in this one, so you wouldn't be able to see that. Plus, you can do that without this selection pane, and I'm not very certain it's useful, especially when you can just enter an indent and copy and paste. Then you have a quick option here for inserting your citations. You can insert a built-in bibliography or works cited page as you go. And actually, this allows you to quick cite and quick reference as well if you're using sources. There aren't any sources in the document right yet, so it automatically did that. I'm going to go ahead and undo this with that Control-Z shortcut I was mentioning earlier. If you are going to use the citation option, though, you're going to add a new source. And let's just say we're using a book from Cornerstone titled Insurance. In 2018, Cincinnati. And the publisher will be Cornerstone. You can show all of the bibliography fields by clicking that Show All Fields section, or you can just show what you absolutely need in the citation by having that not clicked. And if I click Corporate Author there, it'll know that it's a company. You can change the type of the source up here as well. And then, as you can see, it's cited there, Cornerstone 2018. And that's just a quick way you would cite it. It gives you options, well, several different citing options. I'd recommend either APA or MLA format because those are the two most frequently used. As far as a business standpoint is concerned, though, I'd recommend using APA 6. Other than that, you can also mark entries and mark citations as well, which is a quick notation. The mailings tab I've actually already gone over in a previous Tech Tuesday, so I'm going to skip it for this one because it's a little long-winded. However, if you'd like to review the mailings tab, you can go ahead and refer back to my December edition of Tech Tuesday, which is posted online. What it allows you to do is do a mail merge, which is where you can send mass emails to people or send letters or printouts or envelope labels, anything you'd really need. You can also merge into PDF format from here as well. And the last thing we really need to go over as far as the menu options are concerned is the review tab. You can do a spelling and grammar check. You can access the research and proofing tab here, although it really only works for cited references. You can access a thesaurus as well. And if I just search for, let's say, good, then it'll give you a series of better options. You also have access to a word counter, and that shows exactly how long your document is. And then you can add comments. Comments are extremely useful because they allow you to simply highlight and then type off to the side for review and different editing options, such as here, I could add something like capitalize. And then when you save this document and people who are approved log in, they can see your comments and make changes. You can also go through using these here. You can go to the previous one or the next comment here. To remove comments, actually, it's a little bit trickier. You have to click on the comment and then hit delete. You can't just backspace over them. And then you can also track changes to the document and who it's made by. And as you're going through the comments, you can accept or reject editing. It's really only useful if you have multiple people working on a document. The other thing that you could do is you can compare two different documents over here so that you can ensure that they are different or that changes were made. And this is actually leading us into the, in my opinion, the last most useful thing, which is the restricted editing and locked document functions. The reason that people use PDFs is because they're a more finalized version of this, and it's harder to edit than just a Microsoft Word document. If I were to restrict editing, I would go into the Review tab, and then I would click the Restrict Editing here. I would click Limit Formatting Selection if I wanted to keep my document formatted the way it is, and then I can change that by hitting the Settings tab. As I scroll through, I can choose exactly what I want people to edit. I could allow the auto formatting to override the formatting restrictions. I could change or block theme switching, and I could also change or block the style settings. I personally prefer the editing restrictions option, which allows you to allow only this type of editing by people, such as comments is what I would do if I were trying to make a finalized version. Once you have selected what you're going to do and any exceptions, if you have multiple people loaded onto the network, then you'll click Yes, Start Enforcing Protection, and it'll give you a password protected option. The password I'm going to use is Cornerstone with a capital C. Then you'd re-enter it and hit OK. And if you're bad at typing like I am, you'll get an error like that. So each one has to match before it will enforce the editing. Now, if I try to edit this document, I can't backspace over something. If I highlight and hit delete, nothing will happen. But if I try to insert a comment, I'm allowed. And this is how you would lock editing from other people if you want to be the only one who can edit the document. I can then hit stop protection if I want to undo this and type in our password. And then I'm allowed to do whatever I need to. I will delete the comment and just backspace over that to show what I was talking about. The other thing you could do is lock a document fully. What you would do is you'd go into the File tab, which is how you save documents, save them as a PDF, open and close and access all your other Word files as well. Go to the Info tab and hit Protect Document. Interesting fact, you can also access that restricted editing function from that area of the menu as well. But this time we're going to encrypt it with a password. Password is going to be Cornerstone again. And then I'll click OK. And then it will prompt you to confirm the password. And then I'm going to save the file and close. Now, I already have this document saved to my flash drive. Excuse me. But if I go to reopen it, it'll open up Word, and then it'll tell me the document's locked, and I have to type in the password. So I type it in, hit enter, and I'm back into the document with full editing capabilities. Those are the two different ways you can fully lock down a document. But I would honestly recommend, when you're completely done and finished, turning it into a PDF. And the reason for that is, whereas in Microsoft Word, even though the document is now locked, I enter the password, I can hit Control Copy, go to a new version of Word, and paste it. If I had it locked for editing, which I'm going to do right now, just do capital A as the password. I can't edit this anymore. I can still copy and paste. The one thing it won't let me do that to, though, is the watermark in the background. So that's kind of useful. If you were to do this in Adobe and the text wasn't enabled and you didn't tell it that this was text and instead just made it think that this was an image, which is what Adobe tends to do, especially with Acrobat, then people can't copy and paste your work. They can't add that in, which is why I'd recommend converting into Adobe or Acrobat when you're fully finished with your document. That covers most of the Word basics, but I will go back and add a few other formatting shortcuts for you. If you like to click things and use the home screen here, actually I'm going to stop the protection real quick. There we go. Now I can edit. The shortcuts that I like to use, other than Control Z, which is the undo, Control X is that cut option that I showed you earlier. Control V is pasting, but you can also do, once highlighted, Control B, which automatically bolds, Control I, which italicizes, Control U, which is the underline, Control S, which will save your document, and Control C for copy and paste. Well, I hope you learned something new from this little presentation on Microsoft Word. Like I said before, if you have any further questions about Tech Tuesday or about Microsoft Word in general or any other real program, feel free to contact me. My email address is tlevine@crnstone.com. And you could also feel free to give me a call or just post something to Cornerstone generally. Call into Cornerstone and you'll get forwarded to me. If you have any comments or concerns, just send me an email, and I hope you have a lovely rest of the year. Thank you.